stand on Ludgate Hill today, and London appears permanent: stone, domes, towers, and streets layered with centuries of power. Yet much of this visual identity was born from 4 days when the old city seemed to vanish inside a single moving wall of fire. The Great Fire did not merely destroy London. It forced London to decide what could be built again and what could never return. So how much of the London we recognize now was actually created by the catastrophe of 1666? Before the fire, the city was a dense world packed inside and around walls inherited from Roman and medieval London. Its streets were narrow, irregular, and intensely commercial, shaped less by master plans than by centuries of bargaining, building, and survival. Many houses were timber-framed, and their upper stories projected over the road until opposite buildings almost seemed to meet. Workshops, warehouses, haylofts, oil, pitch, coal, spirits, and stacked goods placed fuel beside flame throughout the trading city. The summer had been dry. By early September, roofs, beams, yards, and stored materials were ready to carry fire with terrifying speed. Shortly after midnight on Sunday, September 2nd, flames broke out at Thomas Farriner's bakery in Pudding Lane. Whether a spark escaped from the oven or embers remained alive, the exact first moment cannot be reconstructed with certainty. What followed is certain. A strong easterly wind drove the flames westward from roof to roof and street to street. Church bells sounded, doors opened, and residents entered streets already filling with smoke, carts, furniture, animals, and panic. The Lord Mayor, Thomas Bloodworth, had authority to demolish buildings and create fire breaks, but the decision came too slowly. Owners resisted destruction. Officials feared compensation claims. Every delayed order gave the fire another row of houses. London had pumps, leather buckets, hooks, ladders, and water squirts, but no unified public fire brigade capable of commanding the disaster. As the fire expanded, thousands moved toward the Thames, hoping boats could carry people, goods, and records beyond the flames. Samuel Pepys climbed to high ground, watched the blaze spread, and carried warnings between the city, Whitehall, and the king. Charles II and the Duke of York eventually took an active role, ordering demolitions and encouraging exhausted crews. Beyond the walls, fields filled with displaced families, carts, merchandise, mattresses, ledgers, cages, and whatever could be carried. Inside the city, separate fires merged until observers described something less like burning buildings than a continuous arch of flame. Cheapside, the great commercial artery, became an inferno of shops, warehouses, guild property, and valuable stock. The Royal Exchange, symbol of London's mercantile confidence, was destroyed as flames tore through galleries once crowded with traders. Old St. Paul's was thought safer than ordinary houses, and booksellers had stored valuable stock in its crypts and precincts. But wooden scaffolding surrounded the damaged cathedral, while timber, paper, and a vast lead roof transformed sanctuary into fuel. When St. Paul's burned, witnesses described stones breaking in the heat and molten lead flowing down Ludgate Hill. By then, ordinary demolition was no longer enough. Gunpowder was used to blast gaps through the city before the flames arrived. The explosions, combined with a weakening wind, finally created spaces the fire could not easily cross. By Thursday, the main blaze had subsided, leaving ground too hot to cross and a skyline almost impossible to recognize. The destruction included about 13,200 houses, 87 parish churches, Guildhall, and the medieval Cathedral. Fewer than 10 deaths were officially recorded, though the true number may have been higher and cannot be known with confidence. The human catastrophe was undeniable. Roughly 100,000 people were left without homes in a city already strained by plague and war. As autumn turned toward winter, temporary shelters, unemployment, debt, illness, and hunger extended the disaster far beyond the flames. Merchants had lost stock, artisans had lost workshops, landlords had lost rent, and tenants had lost both possessions and proof of agreements. The city was not an empty drawing board. Beneath the ashes remained leases, debts, property lines, parish claims, and competing rights. That created the central question of reconstruction: rebuild the old city quickly or replace it with an entirely new one. Christopher Wren answered with a vision of wide avenues, grand squares, controlled vistas, and a capital shaped by geometry. His proposal would have replaced the medieval maze with a ceremonial city influenced by continental planning and classical order. John Evelyn, Robert Hooke, and others offered alternatives, each treating catastrophe as a rare chance to redesign London at scale. But elegant plans collided with ownership, money, commerce, and the urgent need to rebuild before the city's economy escaped elsewhere. Acquiring every plot and compensating every owner would have taken years. London could not suspend trade while a perfect city was negotiated. So the ancient street skeleton largely returned. Many plots were rebuilt where they had stood, and old routes kept their memory. This is why modern visitors still find lanes that bend, narrow, and turn as if the medieval city were still underneath. Yet rebuilding the same map did not mean rebuilding the same city. The decisive transformation came through law. A royal proclamation first restrained uncontrolled rebuilding. Parliament then passed the Rebuilding Act in February 1667. The law required the exteriors of new buildings in and around the city to be made principally from brick or stone. Brick was not new to London, and some pre-fire buildings already used it. The fire made safer materials a citywide obligation. Projecting timber stories were restricted, reducing the overhangs that had carried fire and darkness above narrow lanes. Party walls between adjoining properties were to be built in brick or stone, turning each boundary into a barrier against spread. The Act defined classes of houses, linking their dimensions and number of stories to status, location, and street conditions. Building height was controlled in relation to street width, an early attempt to manage density, light, stability, and fire risk together. Some routes were widened, corners adjusted, and obstructions removed, even while the broader medieval network survived. Along the Thames, access, quays, and movement of goods also had to be reconsidered for a city dependent on river trade. New city surveyors measured walls, foundations, projections, heights, and alignments, making regulation visible on every building site. Special fire courts were created to settle disputes between owners, tenants, landlords, and creditors before construction stalled. Their judgments became famous for speed, redistributing responsibilities so damaged plots could return to productive use. Across the ruins, valuable brick, stone, metal, and timber were salvaged, sorted, sold, and worked back into the new city. Demand transformed the landscape beyond London as quays, quarries, barges, and roads fed the largest building project in the kingdom. Carpenters, masons, bricklayers, plasterers, joiners, laborers, and apprentices arrived to turn legislation into walls. Temporary sheds and improvised structures appeared because people needed shelter and business immediately, even as authorities tried to control them. By the late 1660s, streets once filled with ash became corridors of scaffolding, mortar, carts, contracts, and constant noise. A second Rebuilding Act in 1670 refined the system and helped fund the reconstruction of churches and public works. A duty on coal entering London provided revenue, connecting every arriving cargo to the rebuilding of the capital. Private houses returned first where money and claims allowed, while public buildings became statements about London's restored authority. The Royal Exchange reopened in a new building by 1669, signaling that London intended to remain a center of international trade. Guildhall also rose again, its medieval core repaired and adapted rather than simply erased from civic memory. Wren's office supervised a vast ecclesiastical program that would give the rebuilt city its most distinctive public face. 51 city churches were rebuilt under Wren's office, each responding to a different plot, parish, street, and budget. Their spires were not identical ornaments. They became landmarks in a dense commercial city, visible above roofs and along crooked approaches. Parishes were merged where populations and finances could no longer support every church that had existed before the fire. At St. Paul's, the old cathedral shell was too damaged to preserve. Clearing it became an immense project of its own. Wren's first great model proposed a bold classical cathedral, but approval, theology, cost, and engineering repeatedly reshaped the design. The cathedral that emerged was not one sudden idea. It was the result of decades of revisions made while construction advanced. Work on the new St. Paul's began in 1675, 9 years after the fire had left its predecessor a shell. Portland stone arrived by water, linking quarries on the Dorset coast to the rebuilding of London's sacred center. Beneath the famous exterior, Wren used layered structures to reconcile the interior dome, the outer dome, and the lantern above. Stonecutters, carpenters, metalworkers, plasterers, carvers, and mathematicians turned geometry into one of Europe's defining buildings. Year after year, the dome climbed above the brick city, becoming visible long before the cathedral was complete. In 1710, after 35 years of construction, the new St. Paul's stood complete, a building made possible by destruction, law, tax, and labor. Its dome did more than replace a lost cathedral. It gave post-fire London a new image of endurance and collective ambition. Near Pudding Lane, another structure transformed catastrophe into memory. The monument designed by Wren and Robert Hooke. Built between 1671 and 1677, the column rose 202 feet, the same distance from its base to the fire's starting point. The monument was also conceived within an age of experiment, when architecture, astronomy, measurement, and civic display overlapped. The fire also changed how Londoners understood financial risk. Rebuilding a house was useless if the next blaze could erase it again. In 1681, Nicholas Barbon established an office offering fire insurance for houses, turning collective fear into a new commercial system. Insured buildings carried metal fire marks, identifying the company expected to protect the property. Insurance companies maintained their own brigades, creating organized teams where the city of 1666 had possessed only scattered tools and local duty. These private brigades were limited and unequal, but they helped begin the long movement toward professional firefighting in London. The post-fire laws did not make London invulnerable. Buildings still burned, regulations evolved, and later generations repeatedly rebuilt the city. Nor did the Great Fire destroy all of London. It devastated the city, while Westminster, Southwark, and expanding suburbs followed different histories. London was already growing beyond its walls, and reconstruction accelerated the contrast between the regulated commercial core and the wider metropolis. This is the paradox visible today. The lanes often remember medieval London, while the skyline remembers the fire. The catastrophe did not create London's brick tradition from nothing, but it made fire resistance an enforceable urban principle. It did not give London a perfect new plan, but it introduced a powerful model of rebuilding through standards, surveys, courts, and public finance. It did not erase every danger, but it transformed how property owners, insurers, builders, and authorities shared responsibility for risk. And it replaced the ruined cathedral with a dome that still defines London from bridges, rooftops, streets, and distant hills. So how much of modern London was born in 1666? Less of its street map than the grand plans suggest, but more of its rules, skyline, and civic imagination than the ruins first reveal. The fire failed to erase London. Instead, it exposed the city's deepest structures and forced stone, law, and memory to rise together. More than 3 centuries later, London still walks the old paths, but beneath a skyline created by the moment those paths burned.